faithfully delivering value and interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally Book Talks. Today I'll be interpreting the book called The Autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, one of America's famous founding fathers. The autobiography of Benjamin Franklin can be considered the pioneering work of American biographical literature. More importantly, it's a remarkable book that has influenced generations of Americans for over 200 years. Still popular worldwide and seen as America's spiritual guidebook. This book also holds a very high place in literary history. The famous writer Malmu once said that among autobiographies in literary history, none has such enduring interest as Franklin's autobiography. The immense influence of Franklin's autobiography first stems from the author Franklin's unique identity. Franklin was a renowned scientist in the 18th century. Inventions like the lightning rod and Franklin stove are his creations. He was also a pioneer of the American Enlightenment. He was an important leader during the American Revolution, as well as an outstanding politician and diplomat. Additionally, he was a publisher, printer, writer, and scholar. Franklin started by establishing a printing press and publishing newspapers, then used his personal assets and influence to engage in urban and civic development, laying the foundation for the future United States of America. He left a valuable material and spiritual legacy to America, and in the last 20 years of his life, he completed this autobiography, which can be said to be a gift from America to the world. In the book, Franklin tells his life story, and whether in America or elsewhere, people believe that Franklin embodies the finest qualities of the nascent American nation. Therefore, this book has readers worldwide. Parents use Franklin's methods to nurture their children, and young people take Franklin as a role model to strive and advance. This autobiography was started by Franklin in 1771. At that time, he was on vacation in a small town south of London. America was still a British colony, and Franklin's son William was governor of New Jersey. William told Franklin that he wanted to learn about his father's youthful experiences. And so Franklin dug out the bits and pieces from his memory and wrote the biography. Due to busy daily affairs, his writing was intermittent and wasn't largely completed until 1788, spanning 17 years. And throughout the book, Franklin divides his life experiences roughly into 3 stages. The first stage is from his birth in 1766 to age 17, when he grew up and studied in Boston and became an apprentice in a printing house. The second stage, at age 17, he went to Philadelphia to work, traveled to England during this time, and returned to Philadelphia at age 20. These 3 years were a period of accumulation for his future independent entrepreneurship. The third stage is about his entrepreneurship starting at age 20 and the events after his success, including how he entered politics, promoted public welfare, and supported the independence of the North American colonies, among other things. Franklin recorded his early life in great detail. It was written in a relatively casual manner. Here, the author conveys a clear message. All his achievements stemmed from the foundation laid during his youth. First, let's start with the first stage, recounting Franklin's experience growing up and studying in Boston before age 17, and then becoming an apprentice in a printing house. Franklin frankly states at the beginning, "I come from humble origins, one could say impoverished." The Franklin family were devout Puritans, deeply committed to Christianity and possessing a strong pioneering spirit. In 1682, Franklin's father brought his family across the Atlantic from England to the then North American colonies to develop his career. With 2 wives, he fathered a total of 17 children. And Benjamin Franklin was born in Boston in 1706 with 14 older siblings and later had 2 younger sisters. Among the 17 children, Benjamin Franklin was the youngest boy. Maintaining such a large family's daily expenses required money. Franklin's older brothers all apprenticed in various trades, hoping to earn money early to support the family. Because Franklin was exceptionally intelligent, he received special care and was sent to school for education. She excelled academically and even skipped a grade. However, when Franklin was 10, his father took him out of school to work together in the candle and soap business because his father was worried about the family's financial situation and found it difficult to support him. Despite this, Franklin always worked hard in school. He studied diligently. After dropping out, he still read whenever he had time. He realized early on that one must continuously self-improve. Franklin's motivation for self-improvement mainly came from two sources. Secondly, from his own heart. He said his father was his first role model in life. His father was very decisive, had a strong will, because he had to support such a large family. His father was also very understanding. In town, prominent figures often came to seek his father's advice, greatly respecting his suggestions and judgment. Franklin specifically recounted an incident from his childhood. At age 10, he became fascinated with sailing. Once after rain, the ground was muddy and hard to stand on. At Franklin's suggestion, everyone moved stones from a nearby construction site to build a fishing platform. And at the time, no one was at the site. Later, the workers came to scold the children, and then they went home. But Franklin argued with his father, saying that he suggested it for everyone's benefit. But his father taught him that the key issue was that he took things from the site without permission. Franklin realized that although his intentions were for the public good, damaging others' property was still immoral. His father often took Franklin out to observe various trades like carpentry, masonry, and coppersmithing to understand his interests and find him a job he would enjoy. He also experimented with making small machines. He had strong hands-on skills. His later engagement in scientific research, in effortless interactions with people from all walks of life were largely thanks to these eye-opening experiences in his youth. Considering that Franklin loved reading, was good at writing, especially poetry, to prevent him from secretly trying sailing again, his father made him sign a 10-year contract with his brother James. In other words, Franklin had to work in the factory until age 21 to be able to leave and receive wages. Franklin resisted at first, but eventually submitted to the hard apprenticeship work. In his spare time from work, although he didn't have time to write poetry, Franklin could use the printing house's resources to access and read more books and make more friends. With friends who were also book lovers, he enjoyed debating with them. The debate topics were public issues like whether women should receive education. His father gave him much guidance, helping him develop his own writing style and express ideas more clearly. Later, he accidentally obtained a copy of the British Spectator newspaper and used articles from it to train his writing skills. This training wasn't just about reading articles, copying them once, or memorizing some phrases. Franklin said he would try to rewrite articles, using different words to express the same meaning. This way, he discovered his vocabulary was quite limited, and his word usage skills weren't sufficient. So he realized I shouldn't give up on poetry, because writing poetry cultivates language intuition. Poetry requires mastering many words of varying lengths and tones but similar meanings, which expands vocabulary while learning through practice. So he found narrative prose, rewrote them into poetry, then later converted the poetry back to prose. Franklin undertook this practice through self-discipline while seeking guidance from his father. Around age 16, Franklin made another life-changing decision, becoming vegetarian. He happened to read a book on vegetarianism, was deeply moved, learned cooking methods from recipes, cooked his own lunches daily, and used saved money to buy books. He ate boiled potatoes, pasties, bread slices, and similar foods. He said vegetarianism simplified lunch and saved him time. In the factory, while others were still eating, he'd already finished and started reading and studying. Though Franklin didn't remain vegetarian for life, it truly tempered his character. Um, Franklin said those vegetarian years brought many benefits, clearing his mind, sharpening thinking, and making learning more efficient. During this stage, young Franklin read numerous profound philosophy and history books. Works like Locke's An Essay Concerning Human Understanding, Xenophon's Memorabilia, and books on reasoning and arithmetic elevated his cultivation, while he actively perfected himself through practice. Through debates, he learned to respect opponents and use humble language, never uttering overly assertive words. Instead, saying, I think, I believe it's this way, or I suppose things should be such and such. Now we enter the second stage of Franklin's life. Starting at 17, he went to Philadelphia to make a living, traveled to England during this time, and returned to Philadelphia at 20. These 3 years were a crucial period of accumulation for his future independent entrepreneurship. And as his personal reading, study, and practice deepened, Franklin became increasingly opinionated. He signed a 10-year apprenticeship contract with his brother James's printing factory, set to last until age 21. But at 16, he clashed with his brother. He desperately wanted to break the contract. At the time, he published an article criticizing the state assembly in his brother's New England Courant, causing quite a stir. To distance himself, his brother planned to first terminate the contract, then draft a new one, requiring his brother to continue working for him. Franklin ultimately didn't agree. He seized the chance to leave the printing house. Although his brother had warned all Boston printers not to hire him, Franklin resolved to start anew elsewhere and ran away without telling anyone. In 1723, 17-year-old Franklin arrived in Philadelphia, found work at another print shop, made friends, broadened his horizons, met his future wife, Deborah Reed, and had almost no contact with his Boston family until writing to a brother-in-law. This letter was accidentally seen by Pennsylvania Governor William Keith, who was moved by its eloquence, personally sought out Franklin and wrote a long letter to Franklin's father. The letter stated, "This young man is exceptional. You should fund his independent venture to start his own printing house." Franklin then brought the governor's letter back to his Boston home. However, his father refused, replying to the governor, "He's still too young. He should keep working until 21 before I consider funding him." This time, rather than anger over his son's departure, the father felt joy knowing his son was growing and had gained support from such a prestigious governor. His father advised him, maintain humility toward the locals. Be diligent and frugal to win more people's favor. After receiving this outpouring of paternal love, Benjamin Franklin returned to Philadelphia. While apprenticing in Philadelphia, Franklin continued his study habits and honed debate skills with his employer. Later, he promoted his vegetarian beliefs, convincing his boss to join him. When the boss couldn't sustain it and quit, Franklin gained confidence from this. He realized he possessed greater resilience and potential for significant achievements than most. In 1724, aged 18, with the governor's support and his employer's permission, Franklin traveled to England to gain practical experience and seek future business opportunities. In London, Franklin worked as a typesetter in 2 printing houses successively. By age 20, he returned to Philadelphia once again. This period of running away and wandering lasted over 3 years. Franklin summarized this by saying that breaking the contract and leaving without notice was a mistake. But importantly, he was fully aware of what he was doing, so he wouldn't deviate from the path of self-improvement. Mm. A person's growth inevitably involves taking some risks and encountering unpredictable factors. However, if he always stays cautious and clear headed about what he's doing, he has the chance to gain beneficial lessons from risks and even mistakes. Next, Franklin was about to truly embark on the path of doing great things, which is the third stage we're going to discuss. At age 20, he started his business and achieved success. During this stage, Franklin also proposed his famous 13 virtues. After returning to Philadelphia, his former boss gave him a raise and put him in charge of a team. After working for a while, Franklin believed the time was ripe and decided to take a loan to start his own business. He was just 20 years old, but he immediately did three major things. First, founding his own printing house. Second, founding his own newspaper. Third, establishing a reading club. Although Philadelphia already had printing houses, Franklin quickly won over customers with quality. The governor's opinions printed by other factories were shoddy and full of errors. After being reprinted by Franklin's printing house, they were neat and error-free, satisfying all the legislators who unanimously voted to give the job to Franklin. He also purchased the publishing rights to the Pennsylvania Gazette from someone else. It was a newspaper on the verge of bankruptcy. Franklin personally wrote, edited, and printed it. Through high-quality printing and publishing pointed commentaries, he caught the attention of key figures, leading to a surge in subscribers within weeks, all thanks to quality and credibility. Franklin's business began to grow, and he gradually repaid the loans. But to save on shop rent, he shared space with a glass artisan for a long time until 24, when he married Miss Deborah Red. Franklin never easily gave up the virtues of diligence and frugality cultivated in his childhood. During this time, Franklin also founded his reading club. He and the other dozen or so founding members were like-minded and became lifelong friends. They met regularly every Friday to discuss morality, politics, and natural philosophy. And every 3 months, each member had to submit an essay. The club's discussion principle is that seeking truth is never about competing for superiority. To prevent emotional outbursts during debates, whether agreeing or disagreeing, the time for expressing opinions is limited, and exceeding it results in a small fine. At this time, Franklin, who had truly succeeded in his business venture, still didn't spend time on enjoyment. He said, "I have no time for rest." When I had a career, a family, and was raising children, not only did I persist more in self-improvement than before, but I also began pursuing a kind of moral perfection. So next, he listed a table of virtues, totaling 13 virtues. First, temperance. Eat not to fullness, drink not to intoxication. Second, silence. Speak not what harms others or yourself. Avoid trivial chatter. Third, order. Keep everything in its place. Manage each task at its appointed time. Fourth, resolution. Do what ought to be done. Accomplish what you resolve without fail. Fifth, frugality. Spend only on what benefits others or yourself. Waste nothing. Sixth, industry. Cherish time. Do nothing meaningless. Seventh, honesty. Uphold conscience and justice. Shun all falsehood and deceit. Eighth, integrity. Do no harm to others. Act only for the benefit of people. Ninth, moderation. Avoid extremes. Tolerate just offenses without resentment. 10th, cleanliness. Keep body, clothes, and dwelling clean. 11th, tranquility. Do not be disturbed by trivial matters, common occurrences, or unavoidable events. 12th, chastity. Indulge not in excess to harm health. Never impair your own or others' peace or reputation. 13th, humility. Emulate Jesus and Socrates. These 13 virtues have become popular as Franklin's success principles and are seen as a symbol of American cultural spirit. Franklin said he devised a 13-week plan, focusing on cultivating one virtue each week for 13 weeks, and whether he succeeded or not, He recorded it in a notebook. He admitted that among these 13 virtues, the third one, order, was the hardest for him to achieve. Because his memory was excellent, he rarely missed things or lost items. So in daily life, he could be more casual about order, which didn't seem so crucial to him. At first, Franklin felt he must remedy his deficiency in order, but after some effort, he ultimately didn't force himself. He said, I've realized a principle that an axe is best when it has a little rust. A kind person should tolerate some flaws in themselves so as not to put pressure on friends. America is a place of religious freedom. Back then, many Europeans came to settle in America due to religious persecution. Franklin himself was influenced by the Enlightenment and became a deist, not devoutly worshiping like most of his family ancestors. The one and only God. Among Franklin's 13 virtues, there is no piety. Regarding this, he explained, I believe these 13 virtues have nothing to do with religion. As for personal life practices concerning faith, anyone from any religion can achieve perfection and happiness through them. After achieving success in business, Franklin gradually shifted his focus to public welfare. In his mid-20s, he wanted to promote the 13 virtues. He began to consider how to start from personal improvement, help more people improve, and thus unite the people of the North American colonies into a moral community. To this end, Franklin specifically did three major things. First, he wanted to promote the 13 virtues in the reading club he founded. Franklin proudly said that the reading club he founded was the first and best academic group in Pennsylvania, where Philadelphia is located, because the club was very successful. With growing reputation and scale, Franklin thought he could use this experience to try to form a party with international influence. The main purpose of forming this party was to promote his 13 virtues. Members joining this party had to pledge to adhere to the 13 virtues and swear to work for improving the moral standards of all humanity. On this consensus, everyone maintains their religious beliefs. When joining the party, each must strictly practice the 13 virtues like himself. This is an idea only a complete idealist would conceive. And precisely because it was too idealistic, his party founding plan ultimately failed to materialize. However, promoting virtues remained his lifelong mission. Second, he persisted in publishing a personal almanac called Poor Richard's Almanac, Volume 1, published in 1732. Franklin was 26 years old at the time, and after that, he published one every year without interruption for 25 years. This almanac sold 10,000 copies per issue, bringing him substantial income and significant influence. He said Philadelphians at the time eagerly passed it around. It contained articles he believed beneficial for improving personal character. It featured scientific knowledge, informative anecdotes, wisdom tales, and proverbs from various cultures, all teaching self-discipline, virtue cultivation, and prosperity through diligence. For example, one proverb, an empty sack can't stand upright, meaning it's hard to maintain honesty when struggling for basic survival. As we say in Chinese, when granaries are full, people know etiquette. And when the almanac reached its 25th year, he collected these proverbs and printed them at the front. So, third, Franklin accomplished a public welfare project benefiting generations. Starting from his reading club, he established a subscription library. He drafted a proposal, collected donations from club members, and personally bought books for Philadelphia. After obtaining a charter, the library formally opened. Franklin planned its 50-year development, laying groundwork for nationwide subscription libraries. In summary, though, varying in success, Franklin's post-business endeavors ultimately aimed to promote virtue. Later, the North American colonies' victory in the Revolutionary War and founding of the United States were inseparable from Franklin's grassroots virtue promotion. Moral consensus fostered national identity among colonists, fueling their cohesion and combat strength in the independence movement. We've now covered this book's most essential content, yet Franklin's autobiography continued. Initially written for his son, its nature shifted when chronicling adulthood, becoming a classic text interpreting the American dream. This shift was urged by Franklin's friends. After reading early drafts, they encouraged him to continue, completing a true inspirational classic. Later, as the Revolutionary War neared its end and the United States prepared to emerge, a friend in Paris suggested publishing this autobiography would not only offer a moral model but make the British acknowledge American merit. Believing that Americans are indeed an exceptional nation, history proved these friends correct. Franklin continued writing, ultimately shaping what we now call the prototype of the American dream. And simply put, the American dream is America's promise to every arrival. Through hard work and perseverance, you can achieve personal success. Franklin's autobiography confirms this while adding a crucial qualifier. Success requires ethical means, not just relentless striving. He frequently attributed his success to family faith, personal luck, and crucially, his commitment to moral principles. He remarked, "My character was reasonably sound." He declared, "I believe sincerity, integrity, and honesty form the bedrock of human relationships. Life's greatest happiness lies precisely in these virtues." The American dream shaped the national spirit of future Americans. Traits like boldness, sociability, self-discipline, public service, and civic-mindedness became hallmarks. In 1736, 30-year-old Franklin was unanimously elected Secretary of the State Assembly. The following year, he became Philadelphia's Postmaster General. His newspaper now utilized postal distribution, merging business pursuits with political ideals in mutual reinforcement. He spearheaded public initiatives, founding fire departments, funding healthcare, and establishing city street cleaning crews. His scientific contributions, like discovering lightning's nature and inventing the lightning rod and efficient stove, are widely known. Even while engaged in public affairs, he never neglected self-improvement. He mastered French, Italian, Spanish, and Latin, played chess for mental exercise, and donated generously to churches. Personal matters always connected to public good in his narrative. For example, after his 4-year-old son died of smallpox in 1736, Franklin publicly urged parents to prioritize inoculation, transforming grief into advocacy. Franklin's life stands as testament to virtue's power in forging success. In the latter part of his autobiography, he repeatedly mentioned the reading club he founded. All the effort he put in back then paid off. Using the club's influence, he not only established public libraries, but also promoted the founding of the University of Pennsylvania. And, he also leveraged this strong moral image to raise significant funds quickly, used to bolster defense capabilities for North American states, including Pennsylvania. And Franklin was visionary. You knew that to achieve, true security for the colonies and enable future independence from Britain, to build the nation, relying solely on strengthening arms isn't enough. Good diplomacy is also essential. For example, seeking aid from France and also achieving reconciliation with Native American tribes in North America. After entering politics, one thing he devoted himself to year after year was signing peace treaties with Native tribes. He spared no effort in matters concerning long-term and universal interests. For instance, in 1742, he invented the Franklin stove and announced he would forego patent rights, allowing everyone to benefit from the technology. By the time Franklin died in 1790, the stove had become widespread in homes across America, bringing warmth to Americans. Finally, Franklin also mentioned the French and Indian War and how he helped procure weapons and manage logistics for the colonies. After the war, Britain's strength was weakened, and the colonies' demonstrated capability deeply unsettled the British. These events set the stage for the American Revolutionary War that erupted in 1776. However, the autobiography only covers events up to 1762. That year, he accepted an appointment as envoy to Britain, seeking more legal rights for the 13 colonies. This mission was unsuccessful, and from it, we see the growing conflict between the colonies and the mother country. Franklin wrote about this experience briefly. By the time he finished, he was 82 years old, and he passed away 2 years later. The content of Franklin's autobiography is essentially covered. The book sold very well upon publication, but its vitality has endured for over 200 years, remaining popular to this day. Exploring the reasons, there are mainly three. First, Franklin depicted a person from a lower class who, through struggle, became a revered social elite. As a model of the American dream, it has immense exemplary power and appeal. Secondly, the practice of the 13 virtues described in this book is highly actionable. So, shortly after publication, it was viewed as a personal self help manual because it contains tangible guidance for self improvement. Thirdly, Franklin himself has long been defined as a true polymath, a Renaissance style intellectual versed in all world knowledge, a heroic figure, and the public always needs heroes. The hero's reputation added brilliance to this book. Every aspiring reader can easily find motivation and reasons for self improvement in this book. All right, that concludes our interpretation of Franklin's autobiography. Reading notes are below the audio. We'll see you tomorrow.